What is going on, everybody? We are here for week 4 of the NFL season. I'm going to talk through this one. Sheets may or may not pop in, and that's going to be the case for the next week or so. But for right now, I'm going to go through what I like the best. I'm going to go through game by game and talk about some of the things that I'm highlighting. And I also did, I'll talk a little bit more on Sunday about, we'll do the 11 a.m. Eastern, but also I'll do my noon Eastern stuff, and we'll talk through that slate. So with that said, let's get into it. I'm going to start off with the Rams in Chicago. Not really interested in the quarterbacks here. I do think Kyren Williams is clearly one of the top plays. I don't think that's any big statement. I love that against this Bears. The Bears defense has been good, but the Bears play fast and they just don't hold on to the ball enough. So I am very high on Kyren Williams this week. And there's a number of good running backs we can dispute between he and them, but he is one of the top ones and will certainly be in a number of my lineups. I'm not getting to a ton of the receiving here. I don't mind if you wanted to take a shot on the Rams receivers again. For me, it actually, I know that because the way the last week played out, that Whittington seems to be the lower owned. I think you can pivot back to him, and I think you could also take a shot with Atwell and Robinson. Really hard because they're kind of spreading it around. I think the easiest thing to do is to probably play some Parkinson. So I actually have Parkinson a little bit higher rated than maybe maybe the rest of the field does, because I think there is some upside here. And in general, I'm going to be looking to try to pair somebody with, whether it's a Dunze or DJ Moore. And in fact, maybe I'll go right back to a Dunze this week. So these are ones I'm still trying to consider, but there's a lot of other, competitive prices out there. And I think that this ownership is just way too low on a Dunze for his upside. I think we could, a Dunze will be 6K before too long. And both he and Moore are, I guess, mildly interesting to me. So a Dunze being the main one, though, and Parkinson. So Kyren, Parkinson, a Dunze, the highest level of interest for me in this game, along with the Rams defense. Love the Rams defense here. We've seen Caleb turn the ball over. We've seen them have some struggles. They are playing at home, but I think the Rams defense at low ownership is definitely one that I wouldn't mind spending down on at 2,800. Moving on over, and I guess real quick between games, I'm just going to remind everybody this is the last week of our promo, but it's literally like you won't find better prices in the industry using these promo codes. So I would suggest if you're interested in taking a look at us, try it now. You can also try the $10.99 free trial for 3 days. That gives you access to everything SaberSim. All of Sheets, all of Goldie's projections, all of my content, Brandon Cruz, Rhodey, etc. And we were on it. We were certainly on it last week. Good week, but not quite what it could have been, because I really did have some shots. All right, so in this game, you have two, I think, high upside quarterbacks. At least Fields, we can say, used to be an upside quarterback. It really depends on how this one plays out. You're playing it in Indy. It does feel like Pittsburgh's happy to manage the games and manage their wins, but if Indy can get a couple quick strikes on them, I like the idea that Fields could maybe have a day here. So I'm actually a little bit higher on Fields than maybe most of the people. And what I'm doing this week is I really want to think about my quarterback last. If there's one thing we've learned so far this year, that's been the way to go. But there are some stacks where I'll make exceptions. But Fields is one of those cheap quarterbacks that we could play with almost any other game stack. And I think, have a cheap enough play to where he's got enough upside. He runs one into the end zone, throws for 200 yards, and that might be good enough from what we've seen so far this year. I expect that to start changing and seeing some bigger performances. So far, they've only been on the showdown slates. We saw the Josh Allen and Anthony Richardson, Joe Burrow, but that wasn't on the main slate. We haven't really had the main slate absolutely torching. I guess you could say Dak last week, but that was sort of out of random luck, and also cost me a lot of money, so I'm a little tilted about it. Najee Harris, actually, I think is in play more than I usually consider him. And it's simply for the fact that if they do play that game control style offense and the ball control, Indianapolis's defense is shaky enough to where I think Harris could actually have a big game here. So I'm actually gonna put Harris as one of the guys to consider spending down on. I don't like the matchup for Jonathan Taylor. I love playing him at low ownership, as I talked about last week, and certainly was a good play last week. But I don't necessarily love him in this matchup, and there's just better guys to go with. Sorry about this. I'm getting a million pings while this is going on. All right, let's move on. Sorry, let's not move on yet. I think that if you are playing Fields, playing him with just Pickens, Skinny is probably the way I'd go. You could certainly consider Freiermuth as well. I think those are totally reasonable plays. And I'm actually going to put Freiermuth in sort of a similar category to Parkinson here. All right. But on the Indy side, I just, it's hard for me to get to anything. Maybe you could argue because that pass rush is dangerous, that they can force Richardson out and he can have a big rushing game. But personally, I don't think that's what I'm going to be doing. Anyway, moving on to Denver and the Jets in a game that I actually think could be closer than people think. I think the Jets are getting a little overhyped. Let's see them. I mean, look, they looked good against New England. They haven't beaten a good team. They only looked at the only game they looked good. I think this is going to be a pretty much a dud for DFS purposes, except for if you are going to play all this, why aren't we seeing more ownership in Breece Hall? Is it because we're afraid of the Braylon Allen vultures? Maybe, but I still am going to put Hall in the, a guy who I can spend up on and have massive upside in a matchup where if the game script goes as planned, he actually is going to look like a great play. But that's pretty much all I'm getting to in this game. I guess you can make an argument for Tyler Conklin, sort of similar to Freiermuth or Parkinson. I prefer the other two a little bit. But we did see some connection there last week with Rodgers and Conklin. So I'm open to it for sure. I'm very sorry. This is another Discord I'm in that's just blowing up, and I gotta delete all these people who are spamming it right now. Not the TrueDFS Discord, of course. All right. I do think that the highest level of interest I have here is in the defenses. It's more so on the Broncos side because of the price. I think that you're looking at a few defenses when you spend down this week, and Broncos are one of them at 2,500. Certainly, if you can get to the Jets, great. But I don't see I'm trying not to spend that much on a defense for the most part. And even if we do, there's some other ones I'd like to consider. All right. We haven't really found a game stack we liked yet, and that might be the case here as well. I'm interested in this game to see what happens. These teams, I don't really want to get to the quarterbacks, but I'm totally good with getting to Bijan Robinson. I also think that I like to zig when people zag, and no one wants to play Kamara. So I want to try to get some. I gotta have to figure out what I'm going to do at running back this week, because I'd like to get some Kamara ownership when no one's going to play him. It seems so strange that we just had this guy at mega chalk when I didn't understand why he was more popular than Barkley, and sure enough, Barkley proved why. But why wouldn't we consider a little bit of Kamara here? Either way, the more desire, and he's questionable officially right now, so we have to wait on that, obviously. But Bijan is certainly going to be the one that I'm a little bit more interested in. You still have really cheap pass catchers here. I think both Olave and Drake London. Again, I don't want the quarterbacks in this game, but I do think that there's a lot of pieces you can get into. London, Olave. Certainly have interest in both of those. Mooney is a little bit too cheap, so you could throw him into the mix, as well as Shaheed, who let everyone down. And remember, just because they have the one bad week doesn't mean we can't go right back to them. Shaheed at 25% ownership didn't hit. Well, maybe he hits at 3% ownership this week, and I think it's a reasonable gamble to take. I do like Kyle Pitts just fine, not a desired getting to. I do think he makes a little more sense on FanDuel. The pricing is a little different over there. I do like Pitts over there a little bit. I remember I'm going to go game by game, so I'm not going to answer any questions till the end. So I'll look back at them at the end of the show. I'm not going to go alone and answer unless we get a bunch of people in there asking questions, instead of just if we have one guy asking 15 questions, I'm just not going to have a chance to get to everything. In terms of defenses, I think you could completely consider the Falcons in the same category as the Rams and Broncos. And I am, not entirely 100% sold on this Saints team yet. I have very mixed feelings on this one, and I have very mixed feelings about this game in general. But I do think at this price, you actually can make a pretty decent case for both arguments. For both defenses here. All right, Philadelphia, Tampa Bay. My first build this week for the main slate was a stack of this game. I love Jalen Hurts if you're going to take the route of spending up at quarterback, and it's going to be tough because you're going to say, okay, well, he doesn't have his receivers. We don't know about Devontae Smith yet. And we don't know, it's really hard to know what to do with all these Q tags. I mean, basically everybody's got a Q tag. I'm expecting currently most of them to play, but I just have I just have this game as a stack that I'm going to stack not every which way, but most ways. The only thing about Tampa Bay is they've historically very good against the run, give up a lot to the passing game. So it makes Saquon look a little bit worse. However, Saquon's so involved, he'll be involved in the passing game, especially if we lose Devontae Smith. Then we've got to start considering guys like Dotson, potentially even a minimum cost Paris Campbell, Jalen McMillan on the other side. But it's really hard to judge this early with the Q tabs being what they are. I'm happy to go right back to Goddard, regardless of who plays or not for Philadelphia. I like to try and attack this Tampa Bay team over the middle. So I am very high on Goddard as a spend up at tight end. The only problem is you're going to end up having to spend some money to get to play this game. And that's something that's a little bit, it might leave you a little bit strapped elsewhere. In terms of the defenses, if there was one side, I would take the Eagles defense, but I don't really feel like I'm trying to prioritize either at the moment. Just remember that Baker under pressure can certainly make some mistakes. I actually will answer one question between games because I see TJ's only asked one in here. Any key injuries? Oh my God, everybody's injured. We're never going to talk about the injuries. We're never going to go through an injury list or anything like that because in the NFL, you have like 75 guys. And by the time you get to the number 50, nobody remembers who they are. So this is the first look, making it very, very clear. Bears wide receivers. Yeah, again, because that's going to keep Odunze's ownership low. That's why I would play Odunze still. I think he's got the upside. I think they found something a little bit there. Here's another game that I like to target, especially, again, you're spending up at quarterback, and it's hard for a pass-happy quarterback to want to do that. But I do think Stroud has massive upside in this game. We just saw how picked apart Jacksonville was. They have a good front, but on paper. But they certainly didn't look like it against the Bills the other night. Now, Stroud has not been, as I predicted, it's sort of a down year for Houston. I think so far. I think Houston's set up a little bit for a down year. This ownership on Akers feels a little bit too, let's pump the brakes. I'm not going to say I won't have any Akers, but I'll definitely be under the field. I actually don't mind Etienne on the other side. Again, another low-owned play that I'm definitely considering. There's a lot of running backs to consider these days, especially with the way that people are playing these games and kind of boring football, not getting it aired out. But I have a feeling that there might be some airing out in this one. And I think you're going to see it, especially on the Stroud side. I'm still interested a little bit in the Lawrence side as well, but I have this whole game as very, very interesting as a potential stack. Nobody knows ever who to play Stroud with. That's why you see the spread out ownership. I love Tank Dell. I'm going to keep riding this one until, I'm just going to keep riding it. I think that there's massive upside from in every game. I love him here. I like Nico Collins. I have a Dell Collins, then Diggs. But I'm not going to argue with any of them if you want to pair with Stroud. But this is definitely a game that you want to get after. As far as the Jag side go, absolutely love the Brian Thomas play this week. Wish he was a little bit cheaper, but I think we can go ahead and take a shot on Brian Thomas or Christian Kirk. I'm a little bit higher on Thomas myself, but I certainly am not going to fault anybody for having Kirk rated a little bit higher. So Jacksonville, Houston, that's stacked. That's game number 2 that I'm interested in stacking. This is going to be an interesting one. This Cincinnati at Carolina, a little Dalton revenge, I guess. Not really. I mean, it's not back in Cincinnati anyway. And Dalton is still super cheap. And we just saw this Cincinnati team not be able to get one stop the entire night on Monday. First game ever with no punts and no field, no punts and no pick, no punts and no turnovers. Yeah, this is one I have as a fringe game to target as a stack. I don't quite know where I stand because I like some pieces of it. I like both quarterbacks look good. Both running backs look pretty good. Again, there's just a lot of choices to make on this slate. I don't love the idea of playing Hubbard on a big slate, and I think Cincinnati is going to be better than they were last week. I couldn't believe how easily Washington moved the ball on them, even though I did like Washington in that spot. Deontay Johnson's going to be the value guy of the week. We really don't know who else is going to emerge. We've got Leggett as a rookie. Maybe that's a long shot play you can make. But Deontay Johnson certainly should be, one of the fairly priced receivers who showed the upside he has with Dalton last week. So I like that. And if Chase is healthy here, I'm kind of confused at why we wouldn't go back to Chase. Are we afraid of Carolina all of a sudden? I'm not. I am certainly going to play some Chase. So I have Chase as one of the desired spend ups, and he's a little bit cheaper than the other guys who I'd want to spend up for. So this whole game has plenty of goodness to attack. And I'm going to try a little less stacking, less full game stacking in some spots this week. But this is one that I could see myself getting a lot of exposure to, at least in the early slate, if not the main slate in general as well. Get Shrek Bra says Keenan Allen will be an optimal this week. You heard it here first. I hate the "you heard it here first" guy. Just in general, I hate when people say that. But I don't think it's impossible that Keenan Allen could have. Maybe that's actually an interesting play. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that one, to be honest with you. I'm stuck. He's not. The price is horrible. We don't know how limited he's going to be. I'll revisit that one on Sunday, but as of right now, it's just we're playing roulette with those receivers, and it could easily be Allen. It could be, but I think I like Adunze personally. That's where I'm at anyway. But when we say we have heard it here first, every thought has gone through my mind. I've listened to a million podcasts, so I definitely never have heard it here first. Almost never. Every now and then for baseball, it happens for sure, because I don't listen to 10 baseball podcasts every day. But for a week in the NFL, pretty much never going to be a heard here first situation. Here's yet another game that's on my list of potential games to target, especially assuming that Love plays, which it looks like he's going to, just based on the what is the spread at right now? Actually, yeah, it looks okay. I'm assuming Love plays for the purpose of this show. I will move on to we'll talk about what else to do if it doesn't happen. I don't think we're gonna have any interest in this game in general, but I do like Love here, and I love this price. I wouldn't eliminate Darnold. I know the Packers defense has been awesome. These guys are doing some good things in in Minnesota. I'm not going to eliminate Darnold either, but Love certainly goes into the priority category if he's a full go. Aaron Jones, revenge? Why not? But the only issue, just so many running backs to consider this week. Josh Jacobs, another one that I feel why not, but again, so many running backs to consider this week. Hard this early in the week to have my priorities figured out. So gonna have to figure that one out as the week goes on. But receiver, we have Jefferson, who's going to be very low owned, but is projected to be the highest scoring non-quarterback. Actually, maybe the highest scoring player on the slate. He might even be the highest scoring of anybody. One thing to look at here is maybe Josh Naylor, who's developed a nice little rapport there with Darnold. He's got 3 touchdowns so far. He's a little more expensive than you'd want, but I think he's a guy we can consider for value. So I'm going to put Naylor on my list for right now. Jaden Reed is probably the receiver if he's a go for Green Bay. Now, if Jaden Reed is out, I love the idea of getting to maybe a double stack with Watson and Dobbs. The only problem is you've got Wicks in there as well. So it's always wide receiver roulette with Green Bay. Maybe we'll get Rhodey Stott Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern time and get the final ideas of what we want to do there. All right, just going over to tight end here, Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft is showing up as one of the values this week. I like it just fine. I don't necessarily think it's a much better play than Parkinson, Freiermuth, Conklin. I think they're in a similar range, but he's a little bit cheaper. If you need that extra savings, completely good with that. Should be a good real life game. I'm kind of excited to see how this one plays out because I could see either team looking great and blowing out the other, but I've been high on the Packers since people got off of them when Willis started playing, and I'm not going to stop because Jordan Love comes back. So, all right, New England, San Francisco, definitely not playing the quarterbacks here. Getting to the afternoon slate, I like Jordan Mason. Again, it's just more of a game flow thing. I do think it's a good San Francisco defense. I think Ramondre will be heavily involved, but I have Mason as he's a priority B. He's not quite an A priority for me, but it is a priority for me to get San Francisco exposure. Love the Ayuk low ownership. Totally happy to go back to Jennings. So I'm going to put like SF min 1. It doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily do that in all my lineups, but that's going to be sort of a general theme throughout my builds. You will see some Ayuk, you will see some Jennings, you will see some Jordan Mason, and you certainly will see some Eric Saubert just because the savings. And again, I'm not saying he's a better play than Kraft, but he's a little bit cheaper. That extra 300 can matter these days. So I am going to put Saubert into the ruling of tight ends here. And I'll sort of go through my favorite plays. We'll do a little talking and try a build when we get out of here. So, all right. So I've got Saubert as, and again, I'm not going to play target New England heavily against San Francisco. I do think San Francisco wins this game pretty easily, especially coming off of some disappointing losses. All right, here's probably the main game of the slate. Washington, Arizona. It's Arizona a lot. I know we've talked about a lot of games that we like, but this is definitely one of them for me. I love both quarterbacks. I think that they'll be heavily featured in my lineups. I am actually a little bit more on the Daniels side at the moment than I am the Murray side, but I also like both running backs here. This is the problem I'm running into with running back because I just have so many plays and I'm having trouble deciphering. I think in general, when that happens, I tend to want to just play the guys in the higher scoring games, and that's probably what I'll end up doing this week, which means Connor and Robinson are going to be both heavily featured in my lineups. We have Marvin Harrison Jr. questionable. By the way, you want to hear something crazy? There's only three players in the NFL who've had over 300 air yards, and it's all the rookies. It's Harrison, Neighbors, and Odunze. I thought that was kind of wild just through the first 3 weeks. You don't see that very often. But yeah, McLaurin is the natural guy to play with Daniels. I don't think you have to play anybody with Daniels, but I do think McLaurin makes the most sense. I think Noah Brown, again, almost got me there with that. If he just gets across the end zone there on Monday night, we might be talking about a 65K win. But it is what it is. Brown, I'll be overweight these guys. Again, if I'm playing 150, I would be overweight Dortch, Wilson, Brown. I think all of this whole game just feels like a lot of goodness, and definitely a featured target for me, but it's going to be for everybody else as well. One thing that's interesting is if McBride does play, I think I'd want to be like, if the ownership stays low, he's the spend up along with Goddard that I want to get to. I think we can throw the ball, obviously, on Washington. They play fast, and I like the idea of getting exposure to every bit of this game. And I wouldn't cross off the defenses either. I just think that there's just going to be a lot of action, a lot of things happening. That's a game that I'm really, really high on this week. KC and the Chargers. This is going to be an interesting one. Assuming that Herbert does in fact play, if Herbert plays, I have some interest here, but not necessarily a game stack. I don't understand this discrepancy with the Steele ownership. It seems a little bit high, a little bit aggressive. I also think you could go back to Dobbins, but again, I don't want to name 500 every single running back. It's just there's just too many good options. So Carson Steele, yeah, I guess he belongs in there, but do we really think he's having a ceiling enough to break this open? And do you kind of need that from a running back this week? Kind of think you do. So Carson Steele, probably not going to make it a ton for me. Maybe I play him in the afternoon slate where I need some savings, but I probably don't get to him in the main slate. Love Rashee Rice, but hard to get to this price when Chase is only a few $100s more. However, Rice has been more productive than Chase, and it's not maybe the worst idea in the world. Quentin Johnson has shown some serious flashes lately. I think you've got to consider him. If you're not playing with Johnston, just given the potential game flow here, maybe they're coming back or whatever. If Palmer is available, I would consider Palmer, and I would also consider McConkey, but nobody quite prioritized. But those are the guys I got. Look, you're here to hear first. I said this year, do not play Travis Kelce the first 6 weeks of the year. I think later in the season, I'm going to start playing a lot of Kelce. I don't buy that he's dust. I just think this is what happens. He's playing himself into shape a little bit. No big deal. They're 3-0. They just won the Super Bowl twice. They're the favorites to win it again. So I am going to start getting to him, just not quite yet. And look, the Chiefs defense is one of the ones you consider for a spend up. I don't like taking defenses against the Chiefs in general, so probably not going to play the Chargers, even though they're cheap. And for how good their defense is, they shouldn't be 2,600. I can't answer that question, TJ, because I have no idea if how healthy he's even going to be. I know he's going to play, or I think he's going to play, but I can't answer the Marvin Harrison Jr. because I'm not finishing my builds. It would be really, really foolish to have your builds done on a Thursday. Plan to get it for anybody who's a site member. I'm going to have all my stuff up on probably Saturday. That seems to be what's working best, and I'm probably going to go right back to it again this week. Definitely the way that I like to play that the most. All right, Watson and Minshew. This feels like a game you could maybe target on the afternoon slate, especially the Cleveland side of it. But I am not getting to anything on the main slate right now. Devontae Adams is super cheap. I like to play on FanDuel. He's 7K. I think Adams is more of a FanDuel play for me, but I guess you could definitely say Adams and Cooper, but I don't want to try to get everybody. And the one I'm interested in is why are we totally off Brock Bowers here? I think there's a little too much recency bias that we're allowing to plague our brains from these early season things. I would go back to a play like this. I think Bowers is going to have as high a ceiling as any tight end every week, basically regardless of who's quarterback, because they're going to look for him, and he's awesome. I love the idea of a low on Bowers, so that would be my heaviest level of interest here. Both defenses are in play, but I'm just not going out of my way to try to spend up for defenses. All right. So Get Shrek Bro says Slayton will be optimal captain tonight. I like that. Okay. We'll see about this is for those of you guys watching this later. We're doing this on Thursday. I don't mind the Slayton call, by the way. I actually considered him as a captain. I like the Wandale play, though, quite a bit as well. He's been, they've been finding him enough. They run enough plays just for him to where if he breaks one, you're kind of looking pretty. But this should be a fairly good scoring game on the Thursday. Anyway, to sort of sum up what I've got, and we're going to run a build, I've got the priority game is Washington, Arizona. No shocker there. I'm higher on the Jags and Houston, Philadelphia, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, Green Bay, and Cincinnati, Carolina. Those are the 5 that I've sort of circled that I'm going to have the bulk of my players from. Now, I'm going to do less full. I don't need 5 guys from one game. Maybe I do for the Jacksonville-Houston game, but I don't need 5 guys for one game in general. And again, I just want to remind everybody, Indiana, this is a battle, this Indianapolis-Pittsburgh of just 2 totally different styles. Indianapolis runs more plays faster than anybody. Pittsburgh wants to slow it down, grind it, and play their way. That's one that, again, getting some pieces of might be what I do later in the week. As far as running backs go, there's so many good ones. Kyron Williams. I have Harris on the low end, Hall on the high end, Robinson, Kamara on the high end. Considering Barkley, depending on what happens with Devontae Smith, even though I don't like the matchup, in general, I just don't take running backs usually against Tampa Bay. Jones, Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, Robinson, and Connor are all the guys I'm deciding between at running back, and probably some Etienne and Jacobs as well. It's just going to be one of those weeks where it's hard to just go 50, 60% on a running back when there's so many good options available. As far as receivers go, I have Chase, Adunze, Olave, London, Johnston, and I'm just trying to consider what, other ones are going to be probably somewhat in my stacks. I mentioned I like the Brian Thomas thing. I like to take a gamble with the Houston receivers, with the Green Bay receivers, depending on whether Reed's healthy or not. Anyway, we still have a lot of news that we're waiting on. So Saturday is going to be the day where we know more. So All-Star DFS says Caleb Williams stack. Maybe, yeah. They throw a bunch. He basically got there and did everything terribly and got there last week against Indianapolis. The Rams are going to slow it down more, and the Rams are a better defense than Indianapolis. And as far as I'm concerned, Caleb Williams has looked like, I think he's probably been the 2nd or 3rd worst quarterback in football this season so far. That's probably going to change at some point. But if you do a Caleb Williams stack, the other issue you run into is, do you stack him with 1, 2, or 3? And do you include Kmet? So do you go 4? Do you include Keenan Allen into that mix at 6,100 along with DJ Moore? Do you play a Dunze and Keenan Allen or Dunze and DJ Moore? It's just going to be a tricky one to figure out. So even if you do the Caleb Williams, but I like the low ownership. I don't see why. Honestly, I don't understand why Chicago would be favored against the Rams. The Rams are a much, much better team. Is that even right? Let me just check this. Are they really taking this big of a stand? I'm just going to take a quick look here because that seems like an egregious number. Why are they favored over the Rams? Give me the Rams all day in that game. That's a ridiculous line. The Bears have a solid defense, but I don't think the Bears should have any business being favored, much less being favored by 3. Calling these teams equal would be a joke. The Rams are so much better. I don't care whether they win or lose this week. They just are a better run organization. They're more ready for it. That seems crazy to me. I mentioned McLaurin earlier, so he was on my list of receivers, but the problem is I'm not going to put him in the priority category because I don't want any McLaurin probably without Jaden Daniels. I mean, he got there in a very unfortunate way for me. If he just catches a first down instead of a touchdown on that last play, they run the clock out. We win 65K. That would have been just fine. Did not need the touchdown scoring from McLaurin. So maybe I'm a little bitter, but I'm probably going to leave my McLaurin shares and just have them with Daniels, because if he has a big day, it's hard to imagine Daniels won't, because Daniels is already going to get it with his legs anyway. Okay, so tight ends, I have Goddard, Kraft, Saubert as the cheap ones, Goddard and McBride and Bowers as the spend ups. Also considering Parkinson, Freiermuth, Conklin. Actually, I might get a little boost to Parkinson here. Defenses, again, it's going to be a randomness defense. As Sheet says, don't play more than 20% of any of them. It's true. You saw it last week as a good example as to why all the chalky defenses busted. Rams, Broncos, Falcons, Saints are what stood out to me at first. So you know what I'm going to do? New Orleans, Atlanta. I think I'm going to have to consider that game minus quarterback stack without QB. And then I'm going to be doing a lot of hand building this week. And yeah, so anyway, guys, keep popping in questions or thoughts. I'm happy to get to them now. Sorry, when I'm going through all my stuff and I'm doing it solo, it's hard to answer questions live and go through all of my stuff. And especially for a monster NFL slate where there's like 700 good options and all that stuff. I will touch really quickly on FanDuel, just some of the pricing things that stood out, and you'll see it in the value, the way it pops out. And we can do a build if you guys want to as well. Please give us the like and the subscribe and all that nonsense. I always want to make sure I say that, but I hate selling anything. All right, where am I going? Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, you see McLaurin. I actually like the Deontay. He's more of a possession catch receiver, but like I guess this could be a good spot for him. This is very cheap for Pittman, but we haven't really seen the reason to go to him too much yet. But Devontae Adams is the one who stands out the most to me at 7K. I feel like that's a play we should be making, and he should be heavily involved in a good portion of our builds over there. Other than that, you got the what was the other one that stood out from the running back? I'm probably not going to go with this Carson Steele thing. I just doesn't feel right to me. The guy just runs into. I don't think he's made a defender miss in his life. Going back to school. No, I'm just kidding. I like Carson Steele as a guy. I just have a hard time with him as being the chalk. I feel the same way about Akers. So I just feel like there's too many good upside. I think you do want to spend up on some of these guys. I think you want some Kyron Williams. I think you want James Conner some. I think you want some Jacobs over here is a lot more reasonable. And Brian Robinson Jr., Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Jordan Mason. Those are the guys I'm a little bit more high on FanDuel. So we'll do a build on DraftKings. I'm going to do a build for the lottery, and I'm going to do it as if we're building 100 instead of 20, so we get a better idea of what they want us to do. Let's do this. I've got the correlation a little bit higher. I'm going to go a little bit higher on correlation, just because, again, I don't necessarily need all full stacks, but I'm not going full 10, but I do want to go like a little bit higher than what they're giving us. So we need the millionaire that is, I can't remember which one is the 555 or not. Let me just take a quick look on my entries, and this is. So we've got 3.25 is the $20. So that's the one we want to do. Because we're not going to play 150 in the 555. I'm not that big a baller. Don't get it twisted. All right. So let's do this, and we are going to go. Okay, projections. Let's just do 2, 2, and 2.3.4, and then let's do some builds. So we're building 100, and then we're going to run the sim afterwards and see what it gives us at first look. Now, a lot to be decided before Sunday. Like I said, I'll have my stuff done Saturday just because other than week one, you can have a pretty good idea of what you're doing. But most weeks, you're just going to have 19 million guys questionable. 3/4 missed tackles. That's horrible, though. Get Shrek Broad. You realize that 3 is like a terrible number for a game. You should be, I mean, some of these guys, you look out there and they're breaking 4 or 5 in a single play. Hello, Saquon. That's what I'm talking about. Let's see what we got here. Kyron, another one. All right. What do we have? Sorry, guys. Taking a quick minute here. And this, again, remember, early look, first look. We are not finalizing anything yet. All right, so let's see. This is before running the contest sims. So we're getting Washington stacks at 96%. Oh, I don't want to go too crazy, do we? Jesus, that's a little aggressive, no? Stack exposure. Quarterback +3. How can we have the quarterback +3 at 90%? So let me just see. This is really weird because you really want to play a triple stack with Jaden Daniels? That seems crazy aggressive. That can't be right. McLaurin, 98%. Who else are they playing with him? They must be playing Ertz. Yeah, Ertz. So McLaurin and Ertz. And, I guess they're going to play Brian Robinson also. Is that what? Yeah, that's what it is. That is wild. Okay, let's run the contest sim. Let's see if we can get some different. I love that Washington stack. I love the Arizona on the other side, but it just seems like at 96%. Whoa, that seems like a little crazy. But that's, taking large stands can win you tournaments. So if you're right, I mean, that's one way to get over the field, I guess, is to just play all of it. Just feels like look at these builds. I mean, it's just, it is a good game environment, but I feel like the triple stack with McDaniels, when we were a week away from saying, can we even use a receiver from McDaniels? It seems a little heavy. And why is Noah Brown not showing up more, by the way? I would imagine that they would have gotten to one of the other receivers. No other receivers from Washington. Let me just go to this really quick. This is, again, without running the contest sims. Noah Brown, 1%. Okay, not quite enough. All right, let's do this. And we're going to sort by RA, ROI. And I bet you it's going to change things a little bit. Okay, oops, team stacks. Okay, so there we go. Now we're down to 45% Washington. I'm surprised they're not getting something to Arizona on the other side. So let's try some to up the min uniques to where we can get maybe a little bit more spread out. I'm not to say that I wouldn't take 45% of a game. I would take 45% of a game. I don't know about 45% of a team on a full slate at this moment, although I do like them. And don't get me wrong, it's a great spot. All right, that's not really doing much for us. All right, so that's a little bit better. I do like the Philly side of it. And let's see games. We've got, that's weird. So they're not really doing the game stacks basically at all almost. But if I wanted to do the teams I wanted to get exposed, you know what I am going to do? I am going to do some games. So let's mix in a little bit of what I would actually be doing if I was playing this. Let's get some spread out. I mean, not what I would actually do, but just what I would like to see. Let's go 1-5 here. 5. I don't mind Pittsburgh as a team, but I don't want a whole game stack. This game, obviously, I'd like 20. I'd like to get more of both sides of that one. And what was my other one? Jacksonville, Houston. Did I get that one? Yeah, I actually like that one a little bit better than this. So let's go 15. And Cincinnati, Carolina, Minnesota, Green Bay. So we'll just do 10 of those. And that's going to obviously change everything. Minnesota, Green Bay. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Oh, no, sorry. Cincinnati. It's weird to see the Carolinas like in one of them for me. So I'm just going to put 5 on that and then see what this gives us and see where we're at. All right. Get out of here. All right. Players. Let's see. Team stack. Let's see. Stack exposure. So no, sorry. Team stacks. So we've got Washington at 34%, Jacksonville. So yeah, so you sort of spread out a little bit, not probably a little too spread out elsewhere. I'd like to get like a little bit more, but I like the beginning part of this. I like the Washington, I like the Jacksonville, I like the Philadelphia. I think that makes a lot of sense. In terms of individual players, my guess is you're going to see a result of that. Deontay Johnson getting 37%. It's pretty spread out at receiver, whereas at running back, it's going to be very spread out. Like, I actually think I thought it would be a little bit more spread out. I thought we'd be getting running backs. And I would bet you that in the flex, we're getting running backs the most. Yeah. And they're flex pieces so it's mostly running backs here, as you guys can see. Anyway, good luck to everybody this week. Appreciate you guys tuning in. And we'll be live Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. I will also be live at 12 Eastern time to cover the afternoon and the evening slate, talk about some potential late swaps and whatnot. Give us a like and we'll see you guys at the top of the leaderboards. Good luck, everybody.